Hello, everyone. This is a seminar about how to decrease our suffering during topical steroid withdrawal through mindfulness. My intention for today is to inspire you by how I approached my TSW journey through mindfulness, and also to share my learnings from supporting others on this journey as a mindfulness coach. So the big goal here is to essentially to decrease the suffering that you have to go through. Let me introduce myself briefly. My name is Stepan. I am coming from Slovakia. I do currently live in Sweden. And I quit corticoid steroids in October 2020 after using them for almost 2 decades. I currently do work as a mindfulness coach since November 2020, and I also practice meditation since roughly 2010. On the right side, you can see how my face looked a few weeks after the beginning of the withdrawal. And on the very right side, you can see the photo from October 2021. So 1 year after withdrawal. I do not consider myself fully healed, even after almost 2 years of withdrawal. My skin is still going through a lot of healing. It's still fairly flaky. Of course, the redness has gone down, but I still have some way to go. I will be using the word mindfulness quite a lot today. So I would like to maybe in the beginning to clearly define what I mean when I say mindfulness. So the best way to explain it is to both say what it is about and what it is not about. Because in my experience, people usually have a lot of misconceptions about what mindfulness is. So essentially, there are many different kinds of definitions. The one I like is that mindfulness is about learning to pay attention in a certain way, in a way which is without judgment and in the present moment. So mindfulness is about certain quality of perception. And what kind of perception it is. So mindfulness is about learning to observe your thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations objectively, rather than blindly responding to anything that arises. So mindfulness is also about accepting what you cannot change and acting upon what you can change. And mindfulness includes cultivation of certain qualities such as compassion, gratitude, or kindness, and many others. What mindfulness is not about, mindfulness is not about trying to feel good through evoking pleasant feelings. It is not about achieving state of mind or body where you feel calm all the time or where you have no thoughts. Equally, mindfulness is not something you need to painstakingly and laboriously attain. It's something that you have already within yourself, even though you might not be aware of it, or even though this quality might not be currently activated within you. So mindfulness is also not about avoiding unpleasant things or feelings and only sticking to those pleasant ones. And as I said, that mindfulness is about accepting what you cannot change. That could theoretically imply that it is about being passive and just accepting whatever there is, but that is not true. That is not the case. Mindfulness is a lot about taking action whenever that action actually if we are acting towards something that we can actually change, which of course is not always easy to tell apart and decide what we can change and what we cannot change. But by this point, I just want to stress that mindfulness is not about passivity or blind acceptance of whatever there is. So hope this explains a little bit what mindfulness is about and what it is not about. This is a quick meme, which quite humorously explains what mindfulness is not about. So mindfulness is not about chasing some inner peace, like you see this little creature on the photo. The inner monologue is going like, I don't have all day, so come on, inner peace, be here, happen right now. So this is not how mindfulness works. Inner peace can be, of course, sometimes a product of mindfulness or meditation or contemplation, but it is not its ultimate objective. So the objective of mindfulness is to be able to be present and to be able to observe whatever there is arising, be it good or not, pleasant or not. This is another meme, which on the other hand shows what mindfulness is about. So the person standing on the left side in the corner, down in the corner, imagine that's you. And so imagine that your emotions are on the roller coaster, which you can see on the right side. So mindfulness is a quality of you being able to watch your emotional roller coaster without getting on it. So it is about sort of being able to watch your emotions come and go as they come and go. So again, it is about observing. It is not about suppressing. It is not about ignoring. It is not about being in some kind of a fight with your emotions. It is about learning to observe however uncomfortable your emotions might be. So essentially, it's about getting comfortable with your discomforts. Now I will move on and I will say something more about the first principle that I would like to mention here, and that is that we create a large part of our suffering by ourselves. It's quite fundamental principle in the mindfulness, and it is quite beautifully explained in the so-called two-arrow metaphor, which comes from Buddhism. So imagine there's a person walking through the forest, and there is an arrow shot at this person, and the arrow penetrates the flesh of the person. We're talking about the first arrow. So this is the actual arrow that penetrates the flesh of the person. It causes a great deal of pain, of physical pain. But then, and of course, this first arrow is unavoidable. It is a physical pain we all have to go through in life from time to time. This is especially relevant for us, people in topical steroid withdrawal. We have to go through a great deal of discomfort and pain. It's unavoidable. It's truly unavoidable. But then this metaphor talks about the so-called second arrow, which is represented by the added suffering we create through how we relate to our pain, the unavoidable pain. So by how we relate to it will determine how much we will suffer. So going back to the metaphor, the person is in the forest, struck by an arrow, and probably there will be some inner chatter happening, like, oh my God, what is going to happen? I might die. What is my family gonna do without me? All sorts of kinds of thoughts that create suffering on our part, additional suffering on top of the pain. And so the thing is that this second arrow, or the suffering that it represents, it's actually avoidable. It is something we can avoid. Uh, it is not something that we necessarily have to go through when we are experiencing pain. So equally, during topical steroid withdrawal journey, we tend to let these second arrows hit us. This can be represented by different kinds of self-pity, different kinds of self-beating thoughts, um, different kinds of inner narratives, like, for example, that, oh, I'm never gonna heal, uh, it's not getting better, I'm missing out so much, my friends do not like me anymore, and all kinds of different kinds of thoughts that we create in our head, and as a response to our pain, and all different kinds of symptoms we have to go through. And actually, these are quite avoidable. So maybe here I would like to invite you to pause for a second and just ask yourself for a moment, how much of additional suffering are you creating on your journey right now, just by how you respond to your pain, how you react to it? Maybe just think about it for a second. It could be a little bit, it could be quite a lot. I mean, if we would imagine that the total amount of pain plus the suffering, so both arrows in total represent 100%, then how much of that 100% is represented only by the second arrow? Maybe it's 5%, maybe it's 10, maybe 20, maybe more than 20, maybe 40. Doesn't matter. Even if you're creating just a small amount of suffering, it's still suffering and it's avoidable. So what is the uh, aim here is to actually minimize that suffering. Maybe it's not possible to completely eradicate it for us. We are human beings. We sometimes slip into the habit of creating suffering by relating to our pain in a inefficient way, but we can definitely minimize it. I would like to briefly mention Jon Kabat-Zinn, who is he's a quite an interesting figure here, because he combines two worlds that very few people combine, and that is the world of mindfulness and the world of science. He's a professor at the university who founded so-called mindfulness-based stress reduction program, which is focused on people with different chronic diseases. And basically, this program is trying to help these patients to decrease their suffering through the means of mindfulness. So basically, it includes different kinds of elements like meditation, yoga, mostly meditation and yoga. And it showed that basically mindfulness practice can really improve one's mental and physical health. It happens either through lessened perception of pain and discomfort, lessened rumination on pain, fewer feelings of helplessness. So basically, mindfulness is really powerful tool, not only for working and improving how your mind works, but also also helping yourself when you are going through physical discomfort. Good example is one experiment that Jon Kabat-Zinn did with the patients with psoriasis, which is another skin condition. So that's quite relevant for us. So the patients with psoriasis who were receiving UV light therapy were divided into two groups. And one group was receiving only the UV light therapy, and the other group was receiving also some mindfulness practice on top of it. And so what what became quite clear after some time was that the patients who were alongside with the UE therapy also receiving mindfulness were healing at around 30% faster rate. So, and that is quite an astounding result, I have to say. So, John Kabat-Zinn is a very interesting figure. He also has a lot of different kinds of videos on YouTube where he talks about mindfulness. He wrote many interesting books. So this is for you just to get acquainted with him if you want. Another relevance of mindfulness for skin conditions, I mean, there are many different angles of relevance, but I would like to mention these two. The first one is about reduced tendency to become caught up in distressing and unhelpful vicious cycles of itch and scratching, uh, which we could also call habitual scratching. So this is something we probably all experience at some point, that we tend to scratch ourselves even if we are maybe not experiencing itching objectively. And that is for obvious reasons. I mean, scratching is quite pleasant. It is something that we can quite easily get addicted to, which leads into habitual scratching or the scratching without actually any itching being on our body. So mindfulness can really help with minimizing the habitual scratching. And that happens through basically learning to be present and aware and catching those moments when we slip into habitual scratching again and again. So mindfulness helps us to really be present and to catch those moments. And another point is about becoming more aware of our tendency to worry that everyone is looking at our skin, and to be able to notice whether or not this is actually happening. So again, this is a very, very strong instinct within ourselves. We tend to be very self-conscious about how our skin looks, how others might perceive us, how others might perceive our skin. We make up different kinds of stories, what people think. Maybe they think I'm all wrinkly, or maybe they think I'm ugly, or all different kinds of thoughts happening in our minds. So again, mindfulness can help us to firstly identify those thoughts, and then basically try to minimize them, and not to be so ruled by them. I've been also experiencing this difficulty, of course. I mean, when you see how damaged your skin is, you naturally start worrying about how others might perceive you. But actually, what was interesting for me was that when I uh, when I got enough courage to bring this thing up and actually say that, oh, sorry, today my skin is so bad. Sometimes people responded in a way where it was clear that they actually didn't notice that my skin looked weirdly or affected. So this was quite interesting to realize that people do not always really look at your skin and deeply examine it. So then why would you have to suffer? And even if they would start examining your skin and looking at it, it doesn't matter what they think, really. So again, there is no reason for you to start creating those painful thoughts about how your skin looks. Another point is about the importance of understanding what we can change and what we cannot change. I already mentioned this principle when I was explaining what mindfulness is about and what it is not about. So here I would like to mention just briefly the Serenity Prayer, which is quite a famous prayer, which goes like this: grant us the serenity of mind to accept that which cannot be changed, courage to change that which can be changed, and wisdom to know the one from the other. So basically, this is really relevant for us. I mean, it applies to life in general, simply because if we are focusing our attention, our energy, our efforts to something that we cannot change, that means that we are wasting our efforts. So I guess in life it's more efficient if we focus our efforts and energy to something that we can change, so then we can achieve the results that we want. But sometimes to know the difference is really hard. And I mean, we will probably never be able to tell fully what we can change and what we cannot change. But sometimes we get stuck with things, with focusing our energy to things that it's quite clear that we cannot change. So when talking about TSW journey, one thing we cannot change is the fact that we have to go through certain amount of pain. We have to go through certain symptoms manifesting on our body, which is unpleasant, which is uncomfortable. But basically, sometimes when we are on this journey, we focus our resources on something that it's probably not gonna be changed fundamentally. So it's again just a brief invitation for you to ponder on this and think where might be those areas in your life right now where you might be focusing your energy and efforts to something that is gonna last and you are not gonna change it right now. So when talking about this principle, I would like to mention the term guilty pleasures, which is a quite known term. Guilty pleasures, the pleasures that we enjoy, but we feel still kind of guilty about them. It could be some really poppy song that we enjoy secretly when we are home alone, but we would probably be quite uncomfortable sharing the fact that we like it with others. So when talking about this principle in relation to TSW, what I noticed when I worked with different kinds of individuals is that, or was that, we tend to push away different kinds of pleasures from our life that we don't really fully know that are actually harming us. And again, that is quite natural. We go through so much pain, and our body is so reactive. The flares are coming kind of randomly, and we maybe become a little bit paranoid about what might be causing the flare, what might be causing the present worsening that we might be experiencing right now. So to give you a few examples, we could be talking about, I guess the diet would be the best example. Many people tend to cut out gluten or milk products, or radically cut down on sugar, maybe coffee, caffeine, things like that. So, and of course, this is not an invitation for you to go wild and start eating only sugar and gluten products. So, but it is an invitation for you to just to stay curious if there are any pleasures that you cut out from your life because of your fear of these things causing you some harm. Maybe just pause again for a second and think, do you have any empirical evidence that these might be the causes of your flares or of your symptoms? And if not, then maybe it makes sense to have a cup of coffee if it gives you pleasure once a day, or have a slice of pie if it gives you pleasure, even though it's only for 10-15 minutes, you know. The sources of pleasure on a TSW journey are really not many, so we need to cling to those that we have. Another point I would like to mention here is about self-compassion. So again, another thing I noticed when working with people is that it's a really tough journey. TSW is not an easy journey to take, and it can be quite common for us to lose self-compassion, compassion with ourselves. That can be for various reasons. I mean, when we quit steroids, the life changes from one day to another so drastically that it can be really hard to accept our new self and simply to be okay with the fact that maybe we cannot work, maybe we cannot be there for our family, maybe we depend more on our family. On the other hand, we can't do so many physical activities. We don't like to be touched by others. So this can lead to different kinds of self-beating thoughts, or rumination about how unworthy we are, how we do not deserve this or do not deserve that. So self-compassion is really a skill and quality that becomes quite crucial for us to cultivate. And that applies for life in general, but I guess on a TSW journey, it applies even more so because we are more vulnerable at this point. So self-compassion isn't a luxury you need to deserve, but rather a gift that you can give yourself whenever you need it. And I really stand by this statement. It's self-compassion is not something you need to deserve. It's not something you can only give yourself if you did something well. If you screwed up, if you did something that makes you feel small, uncomfortable, vulnerable, that is exactly the point when you need to give yourself compassion. So to also give you some practical background to how to practice compassion, there are 3 steps I like to use in this sense. So notice, acknowledge, and be kind to yourself. So the first step is about noticing. And noticing what? So it's about noticing when you might be slipping into those self-beating spaces in your mind, when your inner critic starts raging again. So first you need to be able to notice it. You can notice it either somatically, maybe this manifests on your body on certain part, or maybe you feel certain emotion, maybe you feel vulnerability, or you feel fear, or there could be different kinds of thoughts, some kind of self-judgments. Those can be quite common. So what are those signals for you personally to notice when you might be in the need of self-compassion? So that's the first step. And then second step is about acknowledgement. So basically, it's about acknowledging that, okay, this is the reality. This is how I feel right now. It's again not about resisting anything, just observing and acknowledging and being present with however you feel right now. So that's the second step. And then the third step is actually about granting yourself that self-compassion. So really, you can do it in many different ways. You can visualize that someone is hugging you, or you can even hug yourself, actually hug yourself with your arms. Or you can imagine that your best friend is currently going through the same stuff that you're going through. Your best friend is in the same situation. So imagine how you would approach this person. I imagine that you would probably shower this person with compassion, goodwill, and you would do anything to help this person and give this person support. So once you imagine this, once you imagine it, it becomes easier for you to tap into kindness, tap into compassion and goodwill. So then you can apply it on yourself once you imagine it. So it's not an easy thing to do, but it's definitely something you can practice, and it is a skill that can be practiced as any other skill. And I can confirm it on my personal example. So self-compassion is a very important for us. If you would like to do more research or reading on the topic of self-compassion, I really recommend two authors, Kristin Neff and Tara Brach. These are two wonderful authors who talk specifically about self-compassion, and also from the practical point of view, how you can practice it, and they talk about it in great nuances. So I really recommend those. Another point is about the importance of understanding our needs and asking for what we need. So again, this applies for life in general. Like any of these principles, really, like this can be applied for any life situation. But specifically when talking about TSW, I guess our needs change when we go through TSW, and some of the needs might need to be postponed, or basically we are not in the situation where we can satisfy them. So maybe a good example could be socializing, which is the need that can become quite hard to satisfy when we are going through really powerful flare, and our body hurts. So, but to understand your needs it can be quite relieving. Even if you cannot satisfy your need, just the fact that you understand what your need is can be quite relieving. So, but how to understand your needs? And when I talk about needs here, I talk about the universal needs. So socializing could be one need, one universal need, but there could be other examples like need for creativity or respect or appreciation or shelter, need for food. Very basic needs is what we are talking about. So, but how to understand your needs? So one thing to keep in mind is that needs always manifest somehow. And that is either through emotion, through the thought, oftentimes in the shape of judgment, or through bodily sensation. So whenever you are experiencing some heavy emotion, some really powerful judgmental thought, or some really strong bodily sensation, it is likely that there is some need on your side that is not being met. So I'm going to give you a few examples. Let's say maybe you are going through flare, maybe you are even bedbound, and you start feeling anxious and you start feeling fear about how you are going to be able to sustain yourself because you are also not working currently. So okay, so this is your emotion. It's fear and anxiety. So potentially in this case, your need could be need for financial stability and security. So, okay, so once you know your need, then you can start thinking, what could be other ways for me to secure myself financially? Okay, maybe you cannot work, but maybe there are some other ways for you to go about it. Or maybe the need to manifest through the thought. Maybe it's some kind of a judgment. Let's say it could be judgment like, my friends all my friends abandon me, they don't care about me, they are such a assholes. So it could be that your need is to you might have a need for connection, socializing. There could be many different kinds of need behind that. The bodily sensation, I guess the best example could be the hunger. If you are hungry, you feel it, you feel it in your body, you feel it in your belly. So there's the need for nourishment, for food. But sometimes it can also be maybe other type of sensation. Maybe you feel some tension in your belly or maybe in the chest. So then it's good to pause and ask yourself, what could be the need, or what is really happening inside? What need might not be satisfied on my side right now? So, and once we understand our need, then it becomes a question, how do we satisfy this need? So we can either satisfy it by ourselves, but sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes we actually need to ask others. Sometimes others need to contribute to satisfy our needs. So socializing is a good example. We cannot feel social without other people. So sometimes we need to communicate our needs towards others. Uh, which can be quite hard or vulnerable or uncomfortable. So what we can keep in mind is that actually asking for what you need, it's not selfish, because sometimes we might perceive it as selfish, asking for what we need, but it is actually, we by doing it, we are actually helping others to understand how to make our life better, how to make our situation better. So if we are in the need of socializing, then we can reach out to some friends and we can ask them if they would be willing to meet us, or if we cannot meet personally, we can meet over Zoom or whatever. So communicating our needs towards others is really important, and especially on TSW journey, I would say it's quite important. So for you to remember this more easily, or is I would divide this process into three parts. So the first one is the feeling, what you feel, or it can also be the thought or bodily sensation, but essentially it's about what you feel. What do you feel? The second step is the need, identification of the need, what is behind it. Uh, and the third one is the request, or how you satisfy your needs. So these are the three steps. Another point I would like to mention is, it might sound a bit counterintuitive, but even while working with a bunch of individuals, I asked every person I worked with this question, and the answers were quite remarkable, quite interesting. So the question is, what can we learn from this experience, and what is there in our life that we can still appreciate? How can we view the TSW as a gift or source of lessons? Which again, it might sound counterintuitive, but the thing is that no matter how hard and treacherous our journey is, there is always something in our life we can find that is to be appreciated. I guess the word gratitude comes up when I talk about this. What what can we be grateful for? So even under the worst circumstances, we can still dig out some things that we can be grateful for. So some of the answers I heard were, I learned who my true friends are. I learned how strong I am. It can be really anything. So again, brief invitation for you to ponder on this, to pause and ask yourself, no matter how hard your situation is, what is there in your life right now that you can still appreciate? What can you learn from this experience? What qualities you can currently cultivate? I'm sure there will be some answers within you. Another point I would like to address is about the importance of how we measure our healing progress, which can be quite hard. How to measure this, how to view the healing journey. So it is quite common that we expect this journey, even though we know from experiences of others that it is never linear kind of a healing. We still inside expect it to be at least a little bit linear. And so, but as we know, the reality is not such. The reality is quite different. This process is very non-linear. We have to go through multiple ups and downs. But how to measure this progress? So what I noticed is that when we are on this journey, once we are experiencing some worsening, we might have a tendency to see things darker after the worsening. So to actually perceive our reality darker than it is. And on the other hand, when the improvement happens, it tends to become quite normalized after a while. So let's say we are experiencing some major improvement. Maybe our skin has cleared out all of a sudden, and we are very happy about it for some time, maybe a few days, maybe a week, maybe a few weeks. But after a while, it really becomes quite normal for us, and the sense of appreciation kind of fades. So what could be helpful for us to really track our healing progress more objectively? I guess one way could be to have some photo documentation where we document our skin at different stages, at different months. Or it could be diary where we write down the symptoms. Maybe we write it on the scale from 1 to 10, itching today from 1 to 10. Okay, maybe today is 7. And then we can look back that maybe on average 6 months ago, our itching was like 9. And now it's only 7, which might not sound like a tremendous difference, but it is a difference. So it can be quite helpful. Another way which really works for me is to ask people around us to remind us about the progress. So in my case, that would be my girlfriend, who is witnessing and experiencing this journey with me from one day to another, from the very beginning of my journey. So sometimes I really need to hear that reminder about what I've been already through, what I was not able to do a year ago, what I was not able to do a year and a half ago, or even like half a year ago. And those reminders can really sometimes help me. They can help me to stay on track and really perceive my healing process more as it is. Another point I would like to mention is about the narratives that we feed within ourselves. So I maybe already mentioned the narratives briefly, but I think the narratives are something that really rule our lives. So what are these narratives, or what do I mean when I talk about the narratives? So the narratives are basically the beliefs we believe to be true, and especially I'm talking about the narratives that what do we believe to be true about ourselves, or what do we believe to be true about this process? How do we see ourselves in this process? What could be those sentences we say to ourselves and we believe to be true? Maybe an example could be that why is this happening to me? I do not deserve this. Maybe it could be narrative like I will never heal. So there could be many different kinds of narratives that are ruling us, ruling over us. So again, maybe just a brief invitation for you to pause for a second and just think, what could be your narratives? What could be your little truths that you believe to be true, either about this process or about yourself or about other people? Maybe it could be about how you perceive that others perceive you. So once we identify these narratives, then we can examine them and actually we can see for ourselves, are these narratives true? Because if they are not, then what we believe in is not true. And then we are living in some kind of illusion. So that can be sometimes useful to look at your narratives. Another point is a little bit more practical nature. I would like to briefly mention meditation and different kinds of breathing techniques that can actually ease some of your symptoms. So when I talk about meditation, I find especially body scan meditation to be very useful. If you are not familiar with a body scan meditation, you can Google it or you can put it in a YouTube. Again, I would refer to John Kabat-Zinn. He has really a nice, I think 30-minute long body scan meditation on YouTube, which is specifically suitable for when you are experiencing big bodily discomfort. So I'm not going to go deeply into that. You can do more research if you're curious. So why this meditation? I will just briefly mention why this meditation is particularly good for us. It is for the reason that body scan meditation is basically about scanning your body with your inner awareness, basically observing and learning to observe whatever is arising on the surface of your body. So in our case, it could be itching, it could be some burning, but I guess the itching is one of the strongest bodily sensations that we are going through. So body scan sensation, body scan meditation can be very, very useful for that. And when I talk about the breathing techniques, I would like to mention the so-called 4-6 breathing technique. So it is a breathing technique with extended exhale. So what we do, and this breathing technique is again to help us to ease out some symptoms. We could be talking about insomnia, we could be talking about anxiety. So it is a technique that helps us to downregulate our body and bring sense of calm into our body. And it can really happen within minutes of practicing this technique. But sometimes it can take longer than only a few minutes. So what we do here is that we do exhale on 4 seconds. And we do extended exhale on 6 seconds. And we are not breathing to the full capacity of our lungs, maybe 3/4, but still making sure that breathing is comfortable and that we get oxygenated enough. So you can perform this kind of a breathing technique. I'm just going to demonstrate briefly. So inhale on 4 seconds. Exhale on 6. Inhale on 4. Exhale on 6. Inhale on 4. Exhale on 6. And so like this, you can continue for a few minutes, for half an hour. This is the technique that helped me many times when I was experiencing my insomnia, or when I was caught up in scratching, scratching wildly before sleep. This is the technique that brought some down regulation and calmness into my body. So you can definitely try it also. Okay, so now that we are approaching end of this presentation, I would like to still mention a few points, or maybe emphasize a few points that I already mentioned. So first one is about dealing with emotional discomfort, or any kind of discomfort. So again, mindfulness is about learning to get comfortable with your discomfort. It sounds really strange and it sounds really undoable, but it is really doable. You can befriend your discomfort, and you can learn from it and grow from it. So again, I guess this refers back to the metaphor that I was mentioning before. It is about avoiding those second arrows. So even if we are experiencing some discomfort, we can still avoid creating that suffering. And sometimes, or not sometimes, but I would say that's all we can do. There is certain level of discomfort we have to experience, and so sometimes the most we can do is to avoid those second arrows. One more word that was coming up a lot when I worked with different people was the uncertainty. Again, uncertainty is something we experience a lot in life in general. We tend to battle uncertainty by trying to be in control, trying to plan our future as much as possible. But the level of uncertainty we are experiencing on TSW journey is of another level. You probably know by yourself that sometimes at certain stage of our journey, we can't even predict if we will be able to get out of the bed the next day, or if we will be able to make ourselves food. So even the basic needs that we are trying to satisfy, we do not have certainty that we will be able to satisfy them. So how to battle uncertainty? How to cope with it? Again, our uncertainty comes from our tendency to plan, our need to plan and to be in control. So sometimes it's all about letting go and learning to surrender to the process. We cannot plan what we cannot plan, and what we cannot be in control. There is no point in, again, forwarding our efforts to that. So sometimes we need to embrace uncertainty and get comfortable with uncertainty. Uncertainty is really uncomfortable, and so it refers again to that first point: getting comfortable with discomfort, getting comfortable with uncertainty. Another point is about the present moment, which is sort of a cliche phrase, present moment, to be in the present moment, how to be in the present moment. It's something we hear a lot about from different sides, but we do not really know what it means or how to achieve that state of being. So I think it's worth saying that it is not in our power to be constantly in a present moment. It is not in our human nature. uh, our human nature is such that our mind is producing thousands of thoughts per day. Uh, we are constantly analyzing different threats in our environment. So sometimes to be in the present moment can be really, really hard. But what we can do is uh, to try to find activities in our life that give us the so-called flowy state of mind. So what could those activities be? I guess for me on the TSW journey, those activities are playing guitar, taking a walk, uh, folding origami, drinking tea. It can be really anything, and it's very individual what those activities could be for you personally. So sometimes it's about bringing these activities more into our life. And sometimes it's not even possible to achieve this flowy state of mind. And that's, again, okay. So mindfulness is not about getting anywhere. It's not about achieving any particular state of being or state of mind. But we can definitely facilitate and help ourselves to bring those present moments more into our life. And also by identifying moments when our mind has wandered away too far away and we are self-beating ourselves and uh, dreaming about some realities that aren't there. So um, and one more thing I would like to mention is that there are essentially two main causes of suffering in our life. It's either through wanting things that are not happening, which is basically craving, or through not wanting what is there right now, so resisting the reality. So when we talk about suffering, different scenarios of suffering, they always fall into these two categories, either craving or resisting. So again, maybe pause for a second and just ask yourself where you might be craving in your life right now, what you might be craving for, what might you be resisting right now, what might be causing you suffering. And again, these are just two different manifestations of the second arrow from the metaphor that I was talking about. In the end, I would like to share a few resources with you, a few mindfulness book authors. I already mentioned John Kabat-Zinn. You can definitely check him out. He wrote a bunch of books. He has multiple videos on YouTube where he talks about mindfulness, where he guides meditations, and he really talks about it in a comprehensive way, understandable for anybody. Similar kind of author is Richard Davidson, who is similar in the sense that he's also a scholar, a scientist, and a long-term meditation practitioner. He wrote a wonderful book called Altered Traits, where he dives more deeply into how different mindfulness techniques affect your brain. And he talks about neuroplasticity as a phenomenon, which is quite an interesting thing to look into. And then the next three names, Matthew Ricard, Pema Chodron, and Thich Nhat Hanh. These are all wonderful authors. They one thing in common, they are all monks, Buddhist monks, who write about mindfulness from slightly different perspective, from perspectives of monks, but nevertheless, their books are wonderful to read and also very practical if you want to learn more about meditation. Another thing I would mention, or I would like to share with you, are the meditation retreats. There is a possibility for you to go and practice meditation in retreats. It's called Vipassana. Basically, it's a 10-day silent retreat course where you will learn how to meditate, how to observe, how to approach those discomforts, and how to basically avoid those second arrows. You can find out more on the webpage dhamma.org. The retreat centers are all around the world, including Europe, US. Most of them are probably in Asia, in India. If you are looking for some individual support, you can definitely find more information on my webpage. I do work as a mindfulness coach with individuals. So if you're looking for someone who understands nuances of TSW and can ask you the right questions and bring some more self-awareness, then you can definitely check my webpage out. And in the end, I would like to just say a few final words. So really, this is the process that for many of us is the hardest thing we ever done. So really, be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself and stay reminded that you really need that self-compassion and that kindness towards yourself, because it's not an easy one. So if you are creating those second arrows, it's causing you suffering, and you are already in so much pain. You don't really need that suffering. Rest is productive. So sometimes when we are in TSW, all we can do is to rest, to be in bed, to be cared for by our family or partners. So remember that even if you are resting, you are still healing, and even if you are resting, you are in a sense being productive. Try to minimize the second arrows. Really try to work on those second arrows and try to identify where those second arrows are in your life right now. What is the shape of those arrows? How do they look? How do they sound? Trying to minimizing them is quite important. Reminding yourself about your progress. Keep reminding yourself when you feel down, when you are going through worsening. Keep reminding yourself what you've been through, what you are capable of right now. And the last one is stick to what works, but stay curious about other potential strategies. So I would give you a little example. I've been a bit, I would say I became quite addicted to Vaseline. I was in a stage where I was moisturizing a lot, especially my face, but I was really curious about the non-moisture treatment, so I tried it for a few days. I realized that I can't really stick to it fully because it was too painful and I wasn't able to work. So, but what it gave me was that I was able to decrease the amount of Vaseline that I was using. So actually, I still moisturize, but I moisturize less, and that is thanks to my curiosity and willingness to try something else or something new or challenging. So that's it. That's pretty much it. I hope this was useful for you. Do not hesitate to reach out, and remember, you're not alone in this. And really, I wish you a comfortable day and speedy recovery.